System. Today's COVID update is brought to you by Full-Tech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
All right, well, welcome back to Open Your Eyes on this wonderful Monday morning. As we promised before the break, we have with us none other than the Prime Minister of this wonderful nation, John Briceño. Prime Minister Briceño, it's been quite a while since we've had you in person on set here, so welcome. Welcome to you. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you very much to both of you. And as Marlene and I were just talking about, I had not a chance to come here to be with you in person. But thankfully, I'm well. I'm healthy and I'm happy. I have a granddaughter. Lots of work, lots of stress, but you thank God for the blessings. As you see, this wonderful little country of ours, Belize, that we all love so much.
Yeah. So we want to get directly into the conversation this morning because we have a lot to talk about and a little bit of time. We know that this morning school starts for primary school children across the country. We're not seeing that traditional excitement that we normally see with the start of school, where parents dress their little children up in new school uniform, shirt, uniform, pants, new shoes, and the children are excited to get to school and show off all the new clothes and be with friends. It's a completely different setting at this time in terms of how schools and how this semester is beginning for primary school children. PM, let's start there. Let's start with that decision and why that decision was taken.
Well, actually, as I was driving in, I was commenting to my assistant and to Edwin. I said, you don't have this heavy traffic, and he said, well, obviously, schools are still not officially open in the traditional sense of the way. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly something that that we almost feel like we're stealing away from our children. That excitement of going to school, putting on your new uniform, your new backpack, and et cetera. But the reality is that we have COVID here, and we have to protect our children. We have not had the opportunity to be able to vaccinate as many people as we wish to, one. And secondly, how is it that we could protect these kids? We are fortunate that one of the first things that we decided to do as we got into government said that we have to fight COVID. We have to take it on head on. We just can't bury our head in the sands. And we managed to get lots of testing equipment to test, trying to contain the virus. And as soon as the vaccines became available, again, we started to do an intense, what we call a diplomatic COVID campaign. And it was successful between myself and the foreign minister. We've managed to get a few 100,000 vaccines donated, and then we had to buy some. We also bought a Johnson & Johnson that we got through CARICOM. We had to buy that. And most importantly, we just got the Pfizer vaccine that has been approved for young people from the age 12 going up. With that in hand, with the Minister of Education talking with the health officials, immediately said, well, okay, let's hold back school for one more month and take the opportunity to get vaccinated as many of our children as possible, so that then they can go to school, starting especially high school, safely. At the same time, we must commend the teachers and the BNTU, and the president. She has been pushing the teachers to get vaccinated, and they have responded well. I think we're probably almost at 90% of our teachers that have been vaccinated, which is amazing, and we need to thank our teachers for that. So we have the confidence that starting the 4th of October, or by 4th of October, we'll be able to open up schools and to continue to operate. And the old cliche, they become a cliche now, the new normal, whereby we have to be careful, still use our masks, try to do the social distancing. I know it's more difficult for the kids, but we still have to, but we have to give them an opportunity to be able to go back to school. The untold emotional stress that our children, our young people are going through, we don't see it, but it is there. I mean, we see when people get sick, and unfortunately some die, but we don't see the mental stress that our children see. I mean, I see it with my he's now an 18-year-old son. You know, you should have seen his disappointment when he was told he can't go back to school. He would pack up a bag and everything, ready to move to Belize City with his brother. You know, and we're robbing an important part of socialization from our children.
Come October 4th, how will we address that under 12 age primary school children mostly that will not be able to
until we could
be
get a
vaccinated
vaccine that
time?
has been approved, we can only do the best that we can by having all the teachers vaccinated, all the people that work in school vaccinated, so that the children can be in a safe environment, and then help them to learn to keep on their masks when they're playing with their friends in the classroom, and try to make sure that they're constantly cleaning their hands. That's as best as we can do right now. But we need to find a way to get our children back to school.
Yeah. Let's step back and look at the overall response to COVID. And I know that you have allowed the Ministry of Health to take the lead, but how do you feel we're doing in terms of vaccination rollout and COVID control?
I think we're generally doing a good job. We said from the beginning that early on that we need to follow the science and have the doctors and the nurses and the health people advise us how best to be able to control COVID. And we've been doing that most of the time, and we've done quite a pretty good job comparing to countries around us and the Caribbean. We've been doing very well. Can do better? Of course we can. But now we're at a time when we have to have this balance. The balance between personal health and economic health. We can't go to one end of either spectrum. We need to find that balance because also people have to work. And we have to learn to live with COVID. That's the reality. We have to learn to live with it. And how do we live with it? Well, first of all, let's get vaccinated. Secondly, keep your mask when you are with people that you don't know. Try to keep your distance and try to keep your hands clean as much as you possibly can. That's all we can do until there's a cure for COVID. And we're still learning how to deal with it. So at this moment, that's what we're doing, finding that balance. Look at what we've done. We've done an amazing thing. You know, people look at any little thing as being negative. And when you're not looking at what we've been accomplishing, right now, Quintana Roo just saw an article where they're locking down Bacalar and Chetumal. Jamaica is in complete lockdown, going for over 7 days. Trinidad and other countries in the Caribbean. In Central America, they don't even have vaccines to give their people. Here we are fighting to contain it. I wish people would be more responsive and more responsible, but we're fighting it, and at the same time working at the economy. We had 22.3% economic growth this last quarter. For the first time, agriculture had over 20% growth, something that has not happened in a decade. And this is what we need to look focused. And I know you all ask me, well, how do you deal with it? I said, well, I have to keep my mind focused on the work that is in front of us.
Now, you speak of the other countries that may be moving into lockdown phases or more rigid regulations. And a part of that is, though, because they are cognizant of the fact that the cases are increasing and that the hospitalizations are reaching capacity. Now, it's very evident by what we're seeing, over 1,000 active cases as of Friday and 27 reported hospitalizations, that we are at our capacity. So will we see more stringent measures, or will we continue to prioritize the economic rebound?
We're not prioritizing the economic rebound. We're just finding that thin line between both sides. And that is why we're constantly reminding people, get vaccinated. We have enough vaccinations now to vaccinate every man, woman, and child from the age 12 to 100 years old. So there's no reason why you're not getting vaccinated. So we have to continue pushing that. We have to revamp the PR campaign. I don't think it's been the best PR campaign that we've had. And I just met with the minister last week, and we are going to put a new team to take over that so that we can improve the vaccination, the campaign about, while it can be a happy go, yes, go get vaccinated, it's also there's a dark side. And we need to let people understand, if you get sick with COVID, you're going to be alone in a hospital, your family can go hold your hand, and you can die alone. And also, when you're dying, it's a very painful, long, process till you die. And we need to let people understand that. And let people understand that, okay, you don't want to take the vaccination because you don't believe in it, well, at least protect the people around you. Do it for others, don't do it for yourself. And when you see somebody like Dr. Koyar, who has been out there constantly from day one telling us, this is a dangerous virus and we need to protect ourselves, and he has been vaccinated, he takes care of himself, and he gets it. It brings it home. Any and everybody can get COVID. And at the rate we're going, eventually I believe that everybody's going to get COVID one day or the other. But so we need to get vaccinated.
What are your thoughts on the, and the two groups of people, it's really important we separate it. There are people who are against the vaccine, and there are people who are unsure or uncertain about taking the vaccine. What do you say to people like that when you encounter them?
Well, there's a small group, a very tiny group that are against it. And then there's a larger group that they are uncertain and don't want to take. All I can tell them is, look around you, look at what is happening. People are dying. Every person that's in the hospital for COVID is because they are not vaccinated. Every person that has died is because they are not vaccinated. That alone should be a good enough reason for you to get vaccinated. And I believe that eventually, I know there's been this controversy or this raging debate of passing legislation to ensure that that you must get vaccinated. Whilst a lot of that is going around, not only in Belize but in other countries, I think we could find a different balance. And I think
so. You won't pursue mandatory vaccination?
No. Of course, we've asked the Attorney General to take a look at it and see whether it can work. We do have mandatory vaccination in Belize. You're aware of it. So it's nothing new. So the laws would allow it.
Children can't get into school without the vaccination.
Yes, exactly. So, but to me, what is more important, I think President Macron said it best from France when he said, I'm tired of being locked up. I said, I'm doing everything to protect myself. I'm taking the vaccination. I should not be locked up. So, in effect, if you want your freedoms like with everybody else, then get vaccinated. So if you don't want to get vaccinated, then that's within your right. But then maybe you should be able to go in a public transport. If you have taken the vaccine, both of you have got the vaccination, and then I don't have the vaccination, I go into the bus and I get you sick. Would that be fair on you? It's not. So I think we need to look at maybe some of those things. You can't go into a restaurant. As it is right now, we're saying in a casino, you can't go. It's a bad example, but at least it's an example that we have right now, that you must be vaccinated to go into a casino.
The BPOs as well.
And BPOs, but at least there it's work. But to go to a restaurant, we might have to go down, and countries are starting to do that. You can't go in a public space if you're not vaccinated. So you don't have to vaccinate, but stay in your corner.
So
probably that would be a better approach.
Can we assume that that's the next escalation of
regulation?
Probably we were working on a way. I can't tell you exactly what we'll be doing, but maybe it's something to look at that would probably, I think, have better results as opposed to saying, well, you have to.
Yep, because one of the things we're seeing, PM, is the numbers are increasing. We have regulations in place. We're telling people to get vaccinated. But despite all of that, the numbers are increasing. And we want to have a certain percentage of the population vaccinated. That is true. But I may venture into saying that may be a medium-term, if not a long-term solution, while the numbers continue to increase. What do we do in this immediate time, what do we do
I don't think
to
we can lock down at
reduce
this time.
those numbers?
I don't think we can lock down at this time because then the actual results are going to be even far worse on people.
Yeah.
The last time around when the government had a lockdown, the government borrowed, I think, about $20 million to give groceries and so forth, and that money was given up
Yeah.
before the election. As a country, it is difficult to go and borrow another 20 million or 40 million to be able to feed people, and people need to eat. Now, we know back then we did not know how the COVID will be moving around. We know now. So at least we can start to protect ourselves and have to start to be more careful. And basically continuing to have that, getting more and more people to understand that they're vaccinated. More and more people have been vaccinated. I think the last count is over 160,000 have gotten. So we're moving in the right direction. We just need to move faster in that direction.
Let me come back to one of the issues here. So you speak of the balance between being able to ensure that we preserve the economic health as well as the health of the nation. We discussed, we had an interview last week with representatives of the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and one of their concerns is that they feel that there's no plan in place that allows for the private sector to have predictability as to what happens next. You spoke of Mexico, they have the stoplight system. You know, certain capacity, you're at green, or yellow, orange, then red. And businesses can plan knowing by the numbers that they see. We have not been able to adopt a similar system as yet. In fact, we wait for mentions of SIs and what new regulations, knowing that they're coming, but never knowing what to expect. Why is that the case?
Well said, and I agree. And just last week, actually for a few cabinet meetings, Minister Mala has been saying it, especially for tourism. It's important for them to have a color code so that people can, there's more certainty. And last week I asked both Minister Mala and Minister Shabat to put their teams together to sit towards working to that. So I believe in the near future, probably in the next week or so, we should have that system in place. So I agree with them.
All right. Now let's come to the issue of the economic recovery. I know that this is a key part of just being able, when you took office, this was a priority for you. Given all the COVID situations, I know at the Belize Investment Summit, it was a moment for you to be able, for the government to be able to talk about the growth that we have had so far. Tell me about it from your perspective.
Well, I think it is, I think it speaks to the resilience of the Belizean people, that all they wanted is the opportunity and a government that can lead them and create the opportunities and the environment for them to strive. In our first quarter in government, there was still a contraction of the economy. But now in this one, we've managed to get that 22.3% growth. To me, what is also most amazing is that growth also has been led by agriculture.
Right.
Something that hasn't been done. When you look at what the previous government did to agriculture, it's a crying shame. They did next to nothing. Our Minister of Agriculture was very aggressive, again, following the dictate that we said that we have to eat what we grow. So when we had our tomatoes, our cabbages, and everything, and lettuce and so forth, we did not give out permits to import those things. We needed to eat. I just saw a video that the minister did. I think he sent it out last night, where he's saying that success, there's a downside to success now, because with onions, the onion farmers now have doubled the growth or the planting of that, and many of the others have more than at least increased by 40, 50%, and our market is limited, and we don't have cold storage. So I know that the minister is working, trying to get cold storage so that we can put these vegetables in cold storage so that then we can be selling it into the market. But we knew it had to be led by agriculture, selling our products both local and abroad. The cattle export have been in the millions of dollars that we have done. Still working with sugar and bananas and citrus. We just agreed to invest through loans $15 million into the citrus industry, but what is also important, that is also going to drive the investments in soursop and also coconuts and other new products or fruits that we can use for exportation. We've worked very closely with the PPOs, immediately trying to help them with the vaccinations and how they can operate. As it is right now, they are only 50%, but then the other 50% works at home, ensuring and passing the DSI based on their advice, their request that every member of their workers must be vaccinated. So the BPO's sector has increased considerably. And then tourism, there are low-hanging fruit. We need to give credit to Anthony Marla and his team. They did an incredible job in trying to work in setting up the gold standard to be able to give some kind of certainty to our visitors and feel that they can be safe, they can visit Belize safely. Doing an aggressive campaign, going after the airlines to increase their flights and even bring new, such as Alaska Air, I think Frontier, that will be flying into Belize shortly. By doing these things, we managed to increase the numbers very quickly. We are at over 85% of where we were in 2019. And God willing, if we continue this trend, we will be at 115% over 2019.
Yeah, the rebound is happening faster, I think, than first predicted.
Well, the IMF was saying that we will only have at best a 2% GDP growth. From all indications we seem that we'll be able to hit 6%. And that did not happen just by happenstance or just by chance. It's simply because as a government we went in laser focus, understanding we have to control COVID, but we have to get the economy growing. That is what is going to answer most of the ills of this country, which will lead us now to the issue of crime, which is where we are also continue to have our challenges.
And I want to dive into that, but let's just come back to tourism for a moment, because what we are getting in terms of reports is that, and this is where that delicate balance comes in, that there are increasing cancellations for multiple reasons. One, the situation in the United States, but also the growing situation in Belize, and the fact now that there are additional regulations entering the country.
I think there are three things. One is that we are entering the slow period in
but
Belize.
they're talking about bookings for high seasons being slow.
The issue of the bookings is also one partially in the United States that the numbers are also increasing in the United States. Even them, I think they're starting now to put more regulations to be able to move along. That's one, which we don't have control. And secondly, of course, it is the issue of, well, they're seeing that the numbers are going up in Belize. But again, we need to have to counter that one by saying that we continue to put strict protocols for our tourist people in the hotels, in the our tour operators and tour guides. All of them have to be vaccinated to be able to. So we need to let them understand when you come, the people you deal with are going to be vaccinated. When you come, we're going to check you to make sure that you're not sick when you're entering the country. And if you are sick, we're going to quarantine you so that we can take care of you so you can get better. So we need to let them understand that that is what we're doing. What we're doing is for their safety. But also, this is where, the color codes can come in place so that they can understand what is it that it is being done. And then also, it's important for our visitors to understand that we have an aggressive vaccination campaign, that every day we're getting 2,000, 3,000 people coming in every day to get vaccinated. So the numbers are increasing, that by the time they come to Belize in late November, early December, we've gone past 50% of our population being vaccinated. So these are some of the things that we have to let them understand. And of course, if you are going to visit another country, you will be concerned and you have to watch what's going on. But we just now need to let them understand what we're doing to be able to protect them when they come to Belize.
I think one of the areas we were celebrating that we continue to see these increasing numbers not affect at this time is the cruise tourism area. And we continue to see cruise ships coming to Belize, and so I'm asking, are we expecting an increase in traffic in cruise tourism anytime soon?
Yes, we do expect that the cruise numbers are going to increase and going to increase considerably. But we did that simply because the Minister of Tourism and along with the Minister of Health, they have gone on board of the cruise ship to look and study their protocols and see what is it that they do to ensure that that their passengers are safe, because they also take an economic risk.
Yeah.
They have to ensure that they protect their passengers, you know, or their guests. And we were satisfied that what they're doing is at the highest level possible, and that is why we continue to allow the cruise ships to continue to visit Belize.
Mm-hmm. So let's, and looking at the economic recovery as you speak of, it's interesting that the two main drivers for this rebound so far has been agriculture and tourism. But as you know, and as a part of your platform, you've spoken at length about diversification, that as much as we want to continue to maintain revenues earned from agriculture and tourism and increase if possible, we have to have other areas where we can depend on. So my question to you is, where are we now in looking at diversification?
But that's exactly what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Agriculture means not only cane, sugar, and bananas, but other products. Mm-hmm. For instance, coconuts. You know, we have been pushing very hard to be able to start to expand the coconut industry. Mm-hmm. The Minister of Agriculture visited Colima in Mexico to look at where they have these huge coconut groves and how is it that it can be translated to be able to get it done in Belize and learn from what worked and what did not work. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the soursop. We're looking at pitahaya. There are a lot of other products that we're looking. So agriculture, you diversify your agricultural product that you don't depend on just one. Mm-hmm. When it comes to sugar, you diversify sugar that you just don't send just the sugar by barge, but you send them what you call the direct consumption sugars, the DCS.
Yes.
So that, again, that's a part of the diversification. Mm-hmm. But we've been working with the BPOs. The BPOs have been increasing considerably since we got in. And it's more than just using just the call centers, but also to provide those services to companies to be able to start to look at how we can do light programming. There's so many other aspects of just answering the phone. And so we're also looking at that. So that is a part of the diversification process that we have been talking about.
And what about marijuana? Where are we with the ever debated issue of whether we move towards full legalization? I know there's been some moves made.
Well, yes, the minister has been working. Minister Musa has been working very hard on that, trying to find how we can do it, and if we go down that road, that it will be done safely and under the right protocols and control measures. Since it has to be a controlled substance. Many believe that by going the legalization route, you could also address the issue of crime and violence in our streets, because now more and more, since it has been, when it has been decriminalized, now you have gang members now fighting for turf, fighting for territory. And a lot of the violence that we see on the streets in Belize City, most of it has to do with that. So if we can feel that if we can make it a legally controlled substance, we can remove it from the streets or from the darkness and put it to light, where it can be strictly controlled. And at the same time, then that government can also collect revenues from it. We know that there is a lot of concerns, and we need to address them, and we plan to address them. And I know, especially from an issue from the churches, from a moral standpoint. But if you were to compare marijuana smoking and liquor, many scientists will tell you that liquor, the abuse of liquor, is far worse than marijuana.
PM, while we continue to see the economy grow, increases in all three sectors, primary, secondary, and tertiary, one of the things that SIB reported last week is that we're also seeing an increase in the consumer price index. Belizeans are paying more for basic products. Belizeans are paying more for food. I think the SIB reported that the consumer price index increased by 3.3% over the last year. So on one hand, you have the economy rebounding, but on the next hand, you have the risk of more Belizeans falling into poverty.
That alone should be a reason for us to be able to produce more of what we eat. Let me start off by saying that. But the price of goods that are going up is a direct correlation with COVID, that we have no control of the price going up worldwide. And this is a phenomenon that is affecting not only Belize, but pretty much every country in the world. That many factories, when there's a COVID outbreak, they have to shut down until they clean up and get ready. And so it has created a backlog. Shipping has gone up. People are waiting months to be able to get their products from the factories because they're not producing like before. And because it is limited, you know, what happened? You know, when you only have one and five away one, that we start to bid for the price. So that is completely out of our control, unfortunately. I wish I can tell you that it is something that we can control, but it is out of our control that these prices continue to go up more and more. Now, what we can do is to work, and we've already spoken with Minister Mai, who have supply controls under his as part of his portfolio, to speak with the people there and to see how we can do some sort of monitoring to ensure that there's not price gouging, but simply because the prices continue to go up. But unfortunately, there's not much we can do when the prices go up in China or the United States or anywhere it goes up, because we are importing it into Belize.
I guess then the question is, when we speak of the success that you're having in the rebound so far, how does that trickle down? The recent statistics from the SIB show that pre-COVID-19, half of this country, 1 in every 2 Belizeans,
in 2019,
is living
in 2018,
in poverty.
it was at 52%,
Yes.
and people are estimating it's probably at 60%.
And with COVID, it's definitely
Probably at
more.
60%.
So how does this trickle down to everyday
the
people?
only way we can get out of poverty, it is by having an economy that's growing and creating jobs for people.
Yes.
Government cannot get you out of poverty, and we need to get to understand that. So we are doing everything that we possibly can to be able to get the economy going so that people can go back to work, one. Secondly, we have to ensure now that our children can go back to school. When I spoke with Minister Fonseca, you know, he said it pretty much broke his heart when he went in Southside Belize City and the teachers are next to tears, say, we want to get our children back in school, and some of them, they're not coming back. So I know we said that we want to have a free education policy. And of course, because of the financial situation, the mess that we created, we can't do it in the first year. But as it is right now, we're looking at the possibility of trying to do a pilot project, test it out in the south side of Belize City, where we have it's a humanitarian crisis that we're going through in that area. So we're looking at the possibility of doing some form of free education in the south side of Belize City. I know my other colleagues, myself included, say, well, we are poor people, and I agree we do, but the crisis in a small geographic area, which is called the south side of Belize City. So it has to do with education. And then, of course, it has to do with health, to ensure that we try to keep our people as healthy as we possibly can so that they can work. It is a combination, and that is exactly what we're doing.
So I hear you with employment and education, but there's also a need for short-term safety nets. And we know that the Minister Balderramos has spoken of an extension of support being offered to the end of the year. But what's the plan moving forward? If the mechanism that you found when you got in is not ideal, how do you ensure that people can be at least able to meet their basic needs during this time?
Well, we will do everything that we possibly can to do that, and we're not saying that we're not looking at that. So we continue to provide some funding to the Human Development or to Ministry to ensure that we can give some basic grocery bag to those that really need it, not just because for the partisan divide, but to ensure that people that need it as best as we possibly can. I wish we could give to everybody in the country, but we simply don't have the money. I can tell you what you want to hear. I can lie to you right now and say, yes, we're going to give. The reality is that the government does not have the money, but we are prepared to do what we have to do to be able to protect the most vulnerable in our society, and those are our poor people. We need to find a way. One of the things that we want to do, and that the Minister of Agriculture has been working on, is in the rural area. In the rural area, you have land in your backyard. You can grow your chicken, you can grow your vegetables, you can grow the basic things, so you should not be in that position as opposed to in the urban setting where you only have a small backyard, or some of them, like in the city here in Belize, they don't even have a backyard. So again, that portion, the minister is starting to work on that, trying to work with the schools when the schools are open so that we have the reprogram so they can have their vegetable gardens and the produce is shared between the students. I saw that in Halakte when I was visiting that area during the campaign, and the principal, Mr. Rekenia, had a great program. He had a greenhouse, and they were growing a lot of vegetables. And what did they do is that they share it with some of the parents that come to help, with some of the students at work, and the rest is being sold, and that money is come back into the school. And the children also are learning.
Yeah.
So we need to find different avenues as opposed to just say to give away, because give away in the short term might help, but in the long term it's not.
All right, well, what we got to do, we have to take a break. There are a lot more issues that we have to discuss, but we'll take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation with Prime Minister John Briceño. So please, stay tuned.
This Monday on Get the Facts, we hear from some of the first children in Belize to receive the Pfizer vaccine. How do they feel about getting vaxxed? Also, how do you treat mild symptoms of COVID-19 at home? What are the signs that your COVID situation has gotten worse, and is it time to go to the hospital? Get the facts on at-home COVID care from General Physician Dr. Laura Friesen. The show starts at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, August 30th. Catch it live on Channel 5 or streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Send your questions to 672-5555 or via Facebook using hashtag #GetTheFacts.
Whether you're at home, on the road, at work, or at school, if you see news happening or suspect that something might be up, call or text the Channel 5 News Belize tip line at 672-5555. You don't have to give us your name, just give us the tip. That's 672-5555. Call or text us so we can check it out.
And we're back, and we're continuing our conversation with Prime Minister Briceño as we discuss several national issues that are on the table. We know that some viewers have submitted questions, and we'll be getting to those in just a few. But before we went to the break, I think we were talking about the economic rebound and how does it trickle down to Belizeans. Prime Minister, you are very well aware of the fact that this is a challenging time for our country. And where you have been voted in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of an economic crisis, there has been a tremendous amount of expectations placed on this administration, and subsequently a lot of disappointment in decisions that have been made. I want to divert just a bit to talk about your perspective on this and how it feels to hear all the critics who are very much in opposition and unhappy with decisions that you've made.
Well, first of all, I think that it's part of the democratic process where people are allowed to be able to speak out their mind or as they wish, whether they support you or don't support you. But also at the same time, I think that as a leader in this country, that we have to remain focused on the work that we were elected to do. Yes, there's great expectation, and as I explained to our supporters, I wish you could give each and every one of you a job. The reality is that A, the finances are not there to be able to do it. B, the law don't allow us to be able to do it as it is because with the permanent secretaries, and C, with the established workers in government, and C, because of the tough decisions that we had to do to be able to try to balance the budget, we had to cut the budget. We had to cut salary, something that we took no pleasure in doing so. So we have an agreement also with the unions to be able to see that we're not going to be spending monies that we don't have and trying to find that thin line, that balance as best as we possibly can. But what I tell people, whilst you may see it that way, I said, but look at what we have accomplished in such a short time, that despite the problems with COVID, we've managed to get the wherewithal to be able to combat COVID. The doctors, they have their PEs, we have the testing, we've been testing, and most importantly, we have the vaccinations. Mm-hmm. Look at the issue of the economy. The economy is starting to grow, and as it grows, people start to work at the free zone. When we, the opposition, criticized us to nomo, as we say in Creole, for opening up the free zone, we put the protocols, and so far, and there's no wood wrong here, make a good knock, but so far we've not had an outbreak at the free zone, and over 1,000 people are working. So we have to look at the issue of these poor tour guides, these tour operators who lost their business because there was no tourism. We were bold enough to say we are going to bring back the tourists as safely as we possibly can, and these people are working. We're looking at the education. When our children have been locked up for so long, we are finding a way to get them back in school safely, and that is what I want you to measure us by. In agriculture, in the BPOs, in the services sector, we are doing the right things. Now, we got a very, 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 very bad hand. We were burning $1 million a day, monies that we did not have. That's what the UDP left for us, and that is what we're turning around.
So how much does this administration borrow a day now?
It's far less. I don't have the exact numbers, but let me put this in perspective. In the first quarter, with our taxes in customs, we are $25 million above projections. We're above projections in taxes in GST, but I can't get the latest numbers to see what, but it has been reduced significantly. Mm-hmm. It has really reduced. We're working in restructuring the super bond. We're looking at buying it over to be able to save a significant amount of money for Belize, and it's going to be a massive win for Belize when we finish the negotiations. We're working with conservation, whereby we'll be able to be able to again to continue to bring funding and set monies aside for conservation. There are a lot of innovative things that we're doing. We're at an exciting time in Belize. We're at an exciting time in Belize.
You noted very early just now that the agreement with the unions was that you would set up a committee to ensure that they can track the progress that's being made. Has that committee been established and met?
The committee is going to, it's a group, it's not necessarily a committee. It's a group where we'll be presenting our report card every
6 months.
Yes. The first meeting is to be held in October, and we will be inviting the private sector, the NGO community, our social partners, and the unions, so we can tell them, well, this is what we have done, this is what we've been accomplishing, here we are from our target. So that will take place every quarter, starting October.
What we've heard from union leader, President Elena Smith, on that matter is that they wrote a letter to you and that they got no response, and that they have had to, a couple of the leaders have had to catch you off schedule to kind of have that discussion to get an update in terms of when are these meetings going to happen. And this is in line with one of the questions that one of our viewers asked in terms of, will your government follow through on this promise to provide the nation with an updated financial position 6
But
months
maybe
into the fiscal
this,
year?
through this medium, I would ask Senator Smith to resend the letter. She and I, we get along very well. We talk on the phone. I mean, and so the last time we were speaking, we were talking about the conference, the teachers' conference that they wanted to have in, I think it was in August. And she could have reminded me. I honestly don't remember getting that letter. I probably did. But I'll ask if she could resend it so I could take a look at it. And it's not that they take me off guard, but I'm accessible pretty much to anybody. So whenever anybody would meet with me and ask me, I'll tell them, well, yeah, this is what we want to do. But we do plan to have that meeting. It is an important part of what we have agreed to do. And we're partners in this together. It's not a matter that government could do as it wish. We are partners. And we need the unions to work with us, just like we need the private sector to work with us and all our social partners. Just on Friday, we had a very constructive meeting with the Council of Churches to address the issues that they were concerned about. And so that's a part of the democratic process. And I'm not shying away from it, and I'm not running away from it.
How do you explain, this is a recurrent concern that we hear from stakeholders. Council of Churches one, the unions another, and I know the social partner senators are also saying that they've written to you and they don't get a response.
I generally respond to everybody. The Council of Churches, I always respond to them. They have my number, they message me and I respond to them. I spend hours every day responding to as many people as I can. So I do not subscribe to that. I do not accept that. I try to answer everybody as best as I possibly can.
The bigger issue, I guess, is the inclusivity.
But what I can't do, and this is what I think some of our social partners need to understand, we were elected to govern. They want to govern, they need to put their names on a ballot. Now they are our partners, and I accept that they were our partners, but they were not elected to govern. We were given a mandate. We were voted based on Plan Belize, and we will do everything possible to enact Plan Belize as best as we possibly can.
And I want to, let's move forward on that, because their point is talking about being able to address the constitutional reform. But before we get to that, let's talk about the good governance rollout. Prime Minister, it's clear you have so many competing priorities. COVID, primary, I guess equally the economy, so crime, there's so many things that have an immediate impact on our everyday lives. But good governance will always be a critical part of that, a cross-cutting issue for all of them.
Yes.
Let's talk about how serious the execution of your commitment to good governance has been since the start of your administration. We're almost 10 months in now.
That commitment has not changed for one bit. It has not wavered. We remain fully committed. But look at what we've done. We've already introduced the whistleblowers legislation. We have passed a copy of the unjust enrichment legislation to the unions. They still haven't responded to us, but we gave it to them several months ago. But we're still trying to tweak it and fine-tune it before we present it to government. Well, I'm sorry, to Parliament. We even are changing the law to be able to have a tendering, a contract. I'm trying to find the right wording.
Procurement.
No. The procurement, we're working on that with IDB as it is right now to come up with a centralized procurement system that will be able to save millions of dollars for government. But we presented legislation for the Contractor General, that the Contractor General is not going to be a one-man or one-woman show. There's going to be an oversight body over that. So these are steps that we're taking. Now, I know we've had some kind of criticism because we've presented two amendments to the Constitution,
yes.
the 10th and the 11th. On the 10th, I want to make it abundantly clear. Simply what we're trying to do with the 10th Amendment is to have certainty in government, in governance. There have always been this tradition and understanding that when a government comes in, everybody resigns at the end of a government. So the new government has a chance to put in the people that they wish. For the very first time in the history of Belize, since 1981, we've had a previous government that strategically put people in places just to be able to hold back the work of the government. And the Public Service Commission is one of them, where we have a former UDP minister as the head of that, and who is also the head of the it's another very important committee that was strategically put there. You have no other than the husband of the honorable member from Albert, who is in that committee, and another member from a voter from Orange Walk Central, who is a rabid supporter of the UDP. They have no intentions of working with us. So we felt to be able to, not only for us, but even for governments in the future, and someday the UDP will probably win, or a third party will win, that we can address that.
Can I
Now
just ask a question on that issue just before we move on to the 11th, because I think it is critical since you've brought it up. Is this not legitimizing the very same thing that you are fighting against? In other words, the idea of having limits tied to the length of the administration is almost opening the door to say that this practice that has been informal for a while, legitimizing it within our Constitution.
But it was there. It was there all along.
They
It
are
was
meant to
happening
be
all the time.
autonomous bodies.
But that is why that has always been there, and it needed to be fixed. Now, there are certain things that we have to be able to address in such a way. For instance, as it is right now, the Public Services Commission it's very political. I mean, they don't have an interest. You could see the amount of applications of people that have been approved to be able to work within a ministry. People that have resigned and we have to replace. And it's not moving because it just gets stuck there.
Yes.
We have a mandate, we have a job to do, and I'm sorry, but I have,
But do you
no, I do have, what we need to do is to know to start to work on how we're going to change the system, but for the time being, this is what has to be done.
So then
Now what
why
we want to
change the
do, now what we
Constitution?
want to do is now to set up a constitutional reform commission. We hope to do it within a few months to come, before the end of the year, and we are going to give them 1 year, whereas they're going to be consulting for the next 5 years. We're going to give them 1 year to be able to have a series of consultations and to make some recommendations to the government, and then we will decide which we think is best for governance. So we're working on that. The 11th amendment is going to be part of that. We're going to pass it on to that body to be able to decide whether we should proceed or not.
On the good governance matter, and perhaps we could dive into this a bit. One of the ghosts that continues to haunt your administration is the criticism of nepotism. That aside, and perhaps even related, if we could discuss a bit, is the BTL Smart issue. One, first of all, to ask for a response on the opposition's request to have chairman of BTL, Marcus Zaraga, chairman your administration appointed, be removed.
I did not hear the opposition then when they were in government calling for the resignation of Ned Vasquez when it was found out that Ned Vasquez was abusing the credit card to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they have no moral standing to make those kinds of requests. But secondly, why are you going to go after the chairman? What has he done anything illegal? Absolutely not. What he has been doing with his team was trying to restructure the company and make it more responsive and more competitive. So there's absolutely no reason why we want to be able to ask for him to be able to resign. I did not hear Patrick Faber screaming out when the then Prime Minister named his son to play with BTL, something that has cost this country tens of millions of dollars, and the story is going to come out. The story is going to come out, and then you're going to see people are going to have a completely and totally different outlook about BTL. But Marlene, you went through this. How did you feel when the government and BTL decided that they are going to give next to nothing of business to Channel 5 and give everything to Channel 7, when there was not a level playing field? It wasn't fair. Now, I am not here to defend Smart. They could take care of themselves, and they can do that. What is important to understand, and I will repeat it again, there is no policy in government of moving from one company to the next company. There's nobody on God's earth that can say, I've called them and said, I want you to give your business from one company A to company B. That does not exist. Secondly, because the previous government left us in such a big hole, we had to make some tough choices. We cut the recurrent budget by 20%. So now you have ministries and departments, their budget has been slashed. And so they have to try to provide the same service with less money. So what have they been doing? They have been trying to get the best deal. And they have met, in one instance, one ministry, met with BTL, met with Smart. And they haggled, and finally, Smart gave them a deal where they're saving $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month. Then you have another issue where the rural development, where these people get $30 a month as for their phone to be able to do their work. And they're complaining that their $30 run out from mid-month. So again, the CEO met with BTL and Smart gave them a better deal, and they are happy with that. So when people are screaming out over that, you can't blame these departments who are trying to make ends meet. You can't.
Now,
and thirdly, the Communications Act demands for there to be competition. That's the law. That is the law.
Mm-hmm. But the issue, Prime Minister, I think, and you know, both BTL and Smart have verified that they made presentations and bid for this business. But as the leader of this nation, knowing that BTL is a government entity, do you think it was a wise decision, especially in these economic times?
Well, first of all, I was unaware of it happening. I found out about it after the fact, one. But secondly, BTL also needs to become more competitive. BTL has been living off the fat. BTL has been fleecing the government of Belize. They have to become more competitive. We just can't be propping them up. That's not how business operates. BTL is a private company where the government has a majority stake.
Of course.
So they need to learn to be more competitive.
Yes, but in order to be competitive, they will need the revenue as well.
But you can't keep them operating being uncompetitive. And the only way you can get them to be more competitive is by having competition. Or else they will never be able to be more nimble and be able to change. This technology, the technology in the telecommunications is changing rapidly. And that is what is happening all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Now, clearly, because of your family's involvement with Smart, people see this as a decision made by your administration to funnel funds into your family business.
It is an unfair assessment or assertion or point which is made mostly by people in the opposition. No matter what I do, they're going to find something or the other. You can't blame my brother or who's involved in it that he found an opportunity to come up with a telephone company with a group of people and to have competition. He has a right. And now you are telling him or telling Smart, who pays millions of dollars of taxes every year too, that you're telling them that you cannot have access to the biggest customer in the country. They pay taxes just like everybody else. They pay taxes just like everybody else. What BTL needs to do is to see how they can become more competitive and more efficient and more effective in what they do.
To set the record straight, PM, on this, public platform. Do you own shares in Smart?
Absolutely not. I do not own any shares in Smart. I get no money from Smart. Not a dollar have I ever gotten from Smart.
And just finally for me on this topic, will you perhaps explain why this decision was taken to forward monies to the company in the absence of a signed contract?
That's not true. Actually, that's not true. The
true.
contract was already signed. The contract was already signed. Here's another case where, I mean, we just look at the noise and not what actually happened. There's an open tendering process. 3 companies applied. And by the way, Smart and I was Channel 7 made a kind of, a little remark, a snide remark about Speed that did not say that they were a member, had a license.
Yes,
they are a licensed reseller.
Yes.
But you can't put everything by the press release. I just called this morning and said, no, they are a licensed reseller. And they won the bid fair and square. The bids were open in front of everybody. They had passwords, and the passwords were given, so everyone was open. It was a fair. Now they're trying to make a point that BTL was offering an extra to it. Well, one, it was never requested in the bidding process, and decided to throw that in because, well, they expect they might get it for over 3 years. One. Secondly, even when you include that, Smart's bid was still cheaper. And thirdly, if that's what they want, Smart can offer the same service. It's not a big deal. It's not an issue. I don't know why they're going to make an issue over something that was done transparently and trying to get the best price for the government of Belize.
Well, I guess the key part is that we can be able to verify that you had no involvement in the process whatsoever.
BTL knows it. They were there when it was open. It was open in front of all of them, of the 3 companies.
So we have a number of questions that have backed up from our viewers. So I want to get to them. And so because they're different topics, I want to get to them as quickly as possible. So someone wants to know about what will be the solution to help the Belize Sugarcane Farmers Association. This is timely. We know BSCFA has expressed to ASR-BSI that they will not continue under the existing contract when it expires end of this year.
That's just on the negotiation process. I mean, we have nothing to do with that. They are selling to BSI, and they can decide whether they want to sell or not. It's a part of the negotiation process. We would encourage both sides to sit down and to try to come up with something that's amicable and something that's important to get the industry going.
Yeah, but we know from experience, and you being a representative in the North, how tested these types of negotiations can get.
Yes, it can, and it's a part of the process.
Okay. Somebody else wants to know, concerning corruption, where are we with corruption allegations against past Minister Montero?
Well, the evidence has been collected. It has been sent to the DPP. I understand that the DPP has asked more information from the police, and they've been carrying that and they're passing on to the DPP. But as you know, Marlene, many viewers don't notice, I can't call the DPP. I can't tell him or her, in this case her, what to do. So I have been hands off and let the process play out and decide whether there is going to be a charge or not against Minister Montero, former Minister Montero.
Good morning. Will GOB go ahead and make deductions to CEOs and senior managements? Yes or no, and if not, why not?
What deductions?
Well, you know that people have been upset over the choice to not follow through the 10%. That has been explained.
We have been explained over and over, so we will not make any deductions.
Okay. If gangs are illegal, why does the government if gangs are illegal, why does the government continue to liaise and negotiate with them?
We are not negotiating with no gangs, and we will never negotiate with any gangs. But what the commissioner has been doing is that they have been meeting with some of these people and talking and trying to talk sense into them to try to behave and don't continue to wreak havoc and terror into their communities. And because he did not listen, then we had to call a national state of emergency in a very, very small, tight area so that we would get them off the street. And they need to understand that we are going to come after them if they don't behave.
Let's get into that, because that's a topic that needs to be discussed and viewers are asking as well. The state of emergency was something that you and other now ministers criticized
And we continue
when you
to
were in
criticize
opposition.
it. We continue to criticize it.
And now you've had to rely on it as an intervention tool now. What's going to be different about a state of emergency under this administration versus those attempted before?
There's a big difference in the sense that we did not throw a wide blanket when we called the state of emergency. What we did, we just narrowed it to a few blocks within the south side, and it simply got to a point because these guys don't want to listen. You're talking to them, and as soon as the police leaves, they come out and they're shooting one another, even broad daylight. And we can't continue to allow a small group to be terrorizing the rest of this city. And that is why that was done, to get them off the streets and hopefully to have them to calm down and let them understand we're coming at you. We're doing a number of things. The short-term plan is to be able to start to work closely with the community and to get rid of the rogue cops. We've already gotten rid of at least a dozen rogue cops that are misbehaving, and we plan to change the law to have the police be held responsible for any kind of misbehavior that they do on the streets while they are operating as a police. The medium term is to use innovation and technology. Innovation in the sense that we're looking now at getting body cameras on the police. Not all the police, but especially the ones that are trying to break up the gangs, or where they go into the nightclubs trying to shut it down, or parties, so that they could be recording what is taking place. That's innovation, but also technology is in that the sense that we want to put more cameras, high definition cameras in different areas of the city, especially the areas where we have the most problems and most, so we're looking at that. And the long-term strategy, part of the long-term strategy is simply, revamping the entire police department the way it has been setting, but certainly also then looking at the economy as to how is it that we be able to grow the economy so that people can go to school and to go to work, they can get a job, and keep the children in school. Because these are the kids, if they're not in school, these guys prey on them and get them to go and commit crime because they have nothing. So we have to be able to do that. We're in the point of naming the Crime Control Commission that will be including the social partners to be able to help us to oversee how the behavior of the police department. And also we're working, and let me just get the name correct, the intervention, there's a leadership intervention facility that has been very, very successful into how that help with counseling. When I met with the Council of Churches, they offered that they have a number of people that can help with counseling. They might not be licensed counselors, but they can talk to these young guys to be able to see how we can get them to change their mindset and their behavior. And also we're still working on the witness protection program as to how it can be best worked out. But one of the things that the commissioner explained to me, and certainly the minister pointed out, is that with technology, by recording people, then the police then can go to court and say, I saw so-and-so commit a crime, and here's the evidence, here's the video. As opposed to a citizen to go and say, I saw so-and-so commit a crime, and when that person goes home, they're being bullied and threatened, and in some instances killed. So this is the number of things that we're doing. Is not going to be happening overnight. It will take a time to be able to turn things around. We did not get where we are overnight. It took a long time. But the point is that we are not giving up, and we're fighting every single day. Minister Musa Karim is there with the police. I mean, he has been in the entire country visiting every area, the police, their offices. I mean, if it's dilapidated, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of work that we have to do.
So you said that you still don't agree with the state of emergency. Were you consulted?
Yes, I was consulted, but I have no option. I have no other option, so I had to agree to it. It's not something that I like. I would rather we don't do it. But if we have no other option, then we will have to do it, because we are going to fight them. We're not going to give up and give in to these people that are terrorizing our communities.
Would you perhaps agree that there is a generation, a group of young men to whom intervention may not work because of how deeply entrenched they are in the crime and gang world, to the point that this hard-handed, heavy-handed approach must be taken?
I would never give up on a person. I would try to do everything possible to try to get them to move away from the life of crime and violence, and try to see how best we can create opportunities and a better life for them. But it does not mean that we will allow them to do as they wish. They need to understand that we live in a country of laws, and that if they want to live in a free society, they need to abide by the laws that we all live by.
Now, before we start to wrap up the conversation, what are some of the emerging priority areas for you?
Well, certainly crime is one that's in the minds of everybody. We're starting to see a new phenomenon, something that was there all along, but it was not as in your face, and that is the issue of violence at home and murders at home. Just last night, the Minister Baleramos messaged me that she wants to say something about that in the National Assembly in the House meeting on Friday, and I said, absolutely. It is a new phenomenon that we've never seen it to the level where, what, about a week ago or so, where a young man went, killed his girlfriend, who was a police officer, and the daughter. And we just saw another one in San Ignacio, and we're seeing more of that coming and taking place. So we need to continue to fight crime and violence in our society, but we need to work with education, get our children back to school, not only to offer them a better future, but also for their mental health. You could imagine in some of the homes that these kids live, their refuge has been the school, and that has been wrenched out from them. Now, in many houses, and mine included, our children have everything, but there's so many more children that don't. And if our children are already crying out that they want to go back to school and they're tired of being locked up in a room, how about those other kids that have nothing? The violence and abuse that these children are going through, it's incredible. It wants to make me cry when I think about it, and I'm sincere when I say this. We need to get them out. So education continues to be our priority. Of course, then the issue of the economy, trying to get that going, trying to create jobs, create opportunities for people. We have a $50 million available right now that will be pumped into the financial system, institutions, to provide funding for small and medium and large businesses that will be able to do two things: create jobs and bring in foreign currency. And then the issue of COVID, that we have to continue to fight until we can get everybody vaccinated and to be able to control the spread of COVID.
And lastly, just looking at the situation of our healthcare workers, Prime Minister, you understand that our frontliners, especially in the healthcare system, have been battling this disease for a year and a half. And due to the economic plan that you implemented, they're doing so at a lesser salary and being asked to work even more time. And they are getting tired of it. We hear reports of it over and over, that they're concerned about overtime pay, they're concerned about number of hours. What's your plan for these people who have put health, their physical and emotional health, on the line for this country?
First of all, I want to acknowledge the heroic work that they do day in and day out. And that is why this year, for 1 year, we're going to give the COVID Awards. And these COVID Awards are going to be where a public recognition from the government and people of Belize to these healthcare workers. Because now you have a better understanding of how COVID operates, so you could work fairly safely. And most of them already, I think more than 90% have already gotten vaccinated. But you could imagine April, May, June, July, August, those dark months when you did not know how COVID operates, how it affects you. You only know it's killing you and it's spreading quickly. It took a lot of guts, determination, love for your work, love for your community, and love for your country to be able to do that. And no money can pay that. When we had to do that very tough decision in cutting salaries, honestly, we tried to see how we could keep them out of what we were doing. But then we were advised legally we can't do that, because then if we do that, then we'll be taken to court and say there's unjust treatment. And so we couldn't. So with great pain in our heart, we had to do it. The issue of the overtime payments, remember the previous government left owing them millions of dollars. We took it up on our own to be able to give them the money. Oh, and by the way, Carl Hushner did not get a salary cut because they're a statutory body.
They're not public officers.
Yeah, they're not. So but we gave them the full amount. We did not cut what we gave them, so they did get their own. And we have paid them their overtime. That was owed before. What is going on right now with the issue of the overtime is not because we as a government don't want to pay them. It's simply the bureaucracy that takes place, and that at one time the accountant general say you can't pay it, and then somebody else. It's been a mess, but that has been cleared up and clarified, and they will be, if they haven't started to get their overtime, they will be getting it very shortly. So they will be paid.
Mm-hmm. All right. And as we close, Prime Minister, what do you want to say to the people of Belize? Those who have been critical, those who are concerned, those who are struggling. What do you say as the leader of the nation to these people?
I want to tell them not to give up, that things are getting better. We're coming down from a deep hole, and we're making no excuses. We knew that it was going to be tough, and that we continue to remain laser focused in what people elected us to do, to make life better for everybody, and we're working towards that. The criticism, I think it's a part of the democratic process. I think it is healthy. Of course, at the moment you want to get upset, or but it's healthy, because then it keeps us on our feet, keeps us on our toes. It keeps us making sure that when we're doing the decisions, that we do it for the right reasons, which is that how is it that we're going to make life better in Belize? How is it that we're going to address the economic situation or crisis that we face? How is it that we're going to be able to help our young people to get back to school safely? These are the questions that we live with. Certainly, I as a leader of this country, I as the Prime Minister of this country, live with it every single day. And I cannot, I will not betray the people of this country to ensure that we can keep this going. I wish that people would have a little bit more patience, but I understand. I do not take it personal when they're out there criticizing us and attacking us and wanting for things to have to happen quicker. I understand. But at the same time, I ask the Belizean people to work with us, to work with us and to help us, because it's not the PUP will get out of it or the UDP. All of us are going to get out of it together. And as long as we can remain together, there's no force on earth that can defeat us or destroy us. We can be our best enemies, or we can do our best together to be able to get out of where we are. And so I end by saying that I want to thank the Belizean people for the opportunity that they gave to our party, to the People's United Party, and that to assure them that we have not changed in the way we think, we have not changed in the way of our outlook, we have not moved away from our North Star, which is Plan Belize, and that we will continue to work every single day to make life better for everybody, because we still abide by what we said, that everybody shall win. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. We appreciate the extended conversation that we've had today. We're going to go ahead and take that final break, and we'll be back in a few.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.